Okay, these are your notes on classifying triangles. This is chapter 9, stop 2, pit stop A notes. So in order to classify triangles, we have two different categories. We're going to classify it as acute, right, or obtuse. And then we can classify it as equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. So this is kind of a breaking point on our two different classifications. So acute, right, or obtuse, and then we can pick equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. So we can give one triangle. If we have one picture of a triangle, we're going to pick one of these, and we're going to pick one of these to describe that triangle. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about an acute triangle. And if I think of acute triangle, I think of a cute little triangle. Okay, so I think of little angles. Cute, okay, it's little. Okay, a cute little triangle or acute triangles. A description of those is that all angles in an acute triangle are less than 90 degrees. So all the angles are acute. All, remember that's a symbol for angles, are acute. All angles are acute. And guys, this symbol, you may see it like this, or you may see it like that. Those both mean angle. Just so you know. So all angles are acute, or they're less than 90 degrees. They're cute little angles, they're less than 90 degrees. So if I were going to draw a picture of an acute triangle, it may look something like this. All those angles are less than 90 degrees. Remember, 90 degrees is a right angle. A right angle. Okay, the next angle we're going to talk about, or triangle, excuse me, is a right triangle. Well, a right triangle sounds kind of just like what it is. Right triangles, we know, have right angles. So a right triangle has one right angle, which is 90 degrees, and two acute angles. So it has one right angle, which is 90 degrees, and two acute angles. Okay, remember, acute angles are less than 90 degrees. Okay, so if I were going to draw a right triangle, those are probably the easiest ones to draw. It's a triangle with a right angle, so these are super easy to spot. If you see a triangle that has a right angle in it, it's automatically a right triangle. Okay? And the last way to classify a triangle like this, acute, right, or obtuse, would be an obtuse triangle. An obtuse triangle has one obtuse angle. An obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees, just so you know. An obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees. So it has one obtuse angle and two acute angles. So it has one obtuse angle, which is greater than 90 degrees, and two acute angles, which are less than 90 degrees. So if I were going to draw an obtuse triangle, it may look something like this. Okay, that angle right there is greater than 90 degrees. It goes past 90 degrees. So these two triangles, I think, are the easiest ones to spot. If you see a right angle, it's automatically a right triangle. If you see an obtuse angle, it's automatically an obtuse triangle. Okay? And the other way that you could classify this would be equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. So in an equilateral triangle, okay, an equilateral triangle, the word equal is in equilateral. So equilateral triangles have all equal sides and all equal angles. So an equilateral triangle has all equal sides and all equal angles. So every single side is the same length and every single angle is the same measure or degrees. So if I were going to draw an equilateral triangle, it would look something like this. This tick mark, there's one tick mark on this side, one tick mark on this side, and one tick mark on this side. Because all these sides have one tick mark, that means that they are all the exact same. Okay? I have one arc here, one arc here, and one arc here. Since every angle has only one arc, that means that all of those angles are the same. So every angle that has one arc measures the exact same. So all equal sides, all equal angles makes it an equilateral triangle. An isosceles triangle has two equal sides and two equal angles. So an isosceles triangle has two equal sides and two equal angles. So if I were going to draw an isosceles triangle, it would look like this. These sides are the same, so I'll give them both one tick mark. This side is a different length, so it gets 2 to show that it's different than these two. These have one tick mark, so they are the same. This one has 2, so it means it's a different length than those two. These angles are the same because they both have one arc. This angle would be different because it has 2 arcs. Okay? And then the last one is a scalene triangle. Okay, a scalene triangle has no equal sides and no equal angles. And here's how you can remember that. When I see scalene triangle, I see scale. When I think of an animal that has scales, I think of a snake. Snakes have scales. If Miss Clickman sees a snake, she is like, no, 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 you better kill that thing. I hate snakes, so I say no to snakes. Okay? So a scalene triangle reminds me of a snake, and I say no, no, no to snakes. I do not like them. So scalene triangles have no equal sides and no equal angles. All right, so a scalene triangle may look something like this, right? Where this side could have one tick mark. This side's going to have 2 because it's not the same. This side's going to have 3, saying that none of these sides are equal because none of them have the same amount of tick marks. I would do the same thing for my angle. 1 arc, 2 arcs, 3 arcs, meaning that none of these angles are the same because none of them have the same amount of arcs. So a scalene triangle has no equal sides and no equal angles. When you see scalene, think of scales. Snakes have scales, and Miss Clickman says no, no, no to snakes. Okay, and then the last thing you're going to learn is how to find a missing angle in a triangle by knowing that the sum of the measures of the angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. So remember, sum means to add. So if I add every single angle in a triangle, it should add up to equal 180 degrees. Never 181 or 182 or 165. It always has to equal 180. Okay, so the angles in a triangle have to add up to equal 180. So let's look at number 1 and let's solve for x. We need to figure out what x is. Well, I know that all the angles in a triangle have to equal 180. Well, I already know that these two are 24 and 36. So if I took those angles away from 180, so 180 minus 24, that's 156. Okay, now I'm going to take away the 36, so minus 36. That leaves me with 120. So that means that this angle right here has to equal 120. So 4x has to equal 120 degrees. Well, this is just a one-step equation. Cut it in half. Inverse operation to isolate the variable. So the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Cancel your 4's. 120 divided by 4 is 30. So x equals 30. Now I could go back and check this. I had 24 and 36. If I plugged a 30 in for x, 4 times 30 is 120. If I add all of these angles up, it should equal 180. 0 plus 4 plus 6 is 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1. So yes, 30 is correct. Look at number 2. I need to solve for x again. But hey, they only give us 2 angles. What about this one? Oh, you see the little square? That's a right angle, so I know that measures 90 degrees. Because right angles are always 90 degrees. So now, I'm like, okay, well, these all have to add up to equal 180. So let's take away the 90. That leaves me with 90. Let's take away the 50. That leaves me with 40. So that means that this angle right here has to equal 40 degrees. So 5x has to equal 40 because that's all that's left. One-step equation. Divide both sides by 5. X equals 8. Let's plug it back in just to make sure. 5 times x, well, x is 8, so 5 times 8 is 40. If I add all these together, that's 0. That's 9 plus 9 is 18. So yep, I did it right. And the last one, number 3. Oh, there's an X on every single one of these. I can't use the same process I've been doing with taking away angles to figure out what this is equal to. So let's see. I know that all of these added together have to equal 180. So 2x plus 2x plus x has to equal 180. Well, let's think back to our chapter 7, combining like terms. I'm going to combine all of my x's together. So we can say x is cats if you want to. Remember, we assign them animals. So 2 cats plus 2 cats plus 1 cat. Well, that's a total of 5 cats, or 5x. Okay, that's going to equal 180. Oh, well, now this is just a one-step equation, so cut it in half. Divide both sides by 5. X is going to equal, well, 180 divided by 5. 5 won't go into 1, but it will go into 18 3 times. So minus 15 leaves me with 3. Bring down my 0. 5 goes into 30 6 times. So x equals 36. So we could go and plug these in. So this is x, so that's 36. 2 times 36 is 72. That means both of those are 72. Well, let's add them together just to make sure. 72 plus 72 plus 36. 2, 4, that's 10. That's 8, and 7 is 15, and 3 is 18. So yes, I did it right. That is correct. So remember, the sum of the measures of the angles in a triangle always have to add up to 180. Okay, and in order to figure out what x is, take your measures that they give you, subtract those from 180 to figure out what this angle needs to equal. So if it needs to equal 120, then just set 4x equal to 120 and solve for x. Sometimes you may have to combine like terms. So you could do that here too, just like we did.